Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
Let's sit down and make an actual plan, and we have definitely got to factor in that retirement danger zone. I wish to God someone had sat down and done that with my dad. We wish we would have known about these things.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want. You've got an 87% chance of success. Well, son, that's a 13% chance of failure.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside Tim Wood, the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement, I'm Kevin McAlpin. Hope you are having a fantastic day. And of course, Tim and I thank you for spending part of it with us here on the show. Coming up on today's program, we often talk about those buckets when it comes to money in retirement. So Tim's going to tell you how he can help you add a fun money bucket into your retirement plan. Plus, how to get both spouses on the same page when it comes to your finances. And later, how the planning differs for those with less than $1 million saved for your retirement. We'll get to that and a whole lot more. But first things first, we do say hello to my good buddy and the most handsome man in the room, Mr. Tim Wood. Tim, always a pleasure, sir. Hope you're having a great day.
Hope you're having a great day too, man. Hope everyone is enjoying life out there and enjoying the winter and getting through it. You know, the warm weather is on its way. We can kind of see it on the horizon. It's not quite here yet, but it'll be March in a few minutes, and then it'll be April, and then the boys will be playing ball again, and we'll be right back at it, and it'll be hot, and we'll be at the beach. So yeah, it'll be there.
Tim, let's dive right into it, man, because I know we have a lot of folks tuned in today. And obviously, if you're listening, you're already taking that added interest into planning for your retirement. And if you want to take it one step further, you want to sit down with Tim Wood, you can do it over the phone. You can do it over Zoom. You can sit down in person if you prefer. And if you'd like to have conversations about any of the topics we cover on this show, 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I recently saw a very interesting story that talked about the 4 things that chew up about 75% of a retiree's monthly income. Their housing, transportation, food, and healthcare. No surprise on any of those 4. So essentially what that tells me is 25% is left for everything else. And that includes taxes, clothes, taking care of the grandkids, and so much more. So, Tim, when it comes to those buckets of money, how can you help our listeners create that sort of that fun money bucket, if you will? And how can you start building that into their plan as early as today?
That's an important part of the plan. The first thing that we do is we figure out what's your floor. What's the expenses that you have that you're normal? And that would be what you were talking about of the 75%. The stuff that you've got to have food, you've got to have somewhere to live, you got to have clothes, you got to, pay taxes, you got to pay for your health care, all that stuff. We know we've got to have that. Let's figure out. And a lot of people agree with me that, giving the tithes aren't an option either. That's part of the expenses. So let's figure that in. Well, that's your floor. That's how much guaranteed lifetime income we've got to get you. But you also, like you said, you need some of that fun income. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to do the things that you've always planned to do. When I do seminars, I've got a slide that goes up there. It says, basically, I'll paraphrase it, that Mr. and Mrs. Smith wanted to join the country club, but never thought they could, and wanted to own a boat, but never thought they could, and wanted to go to Ireland, but never thought they could. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith died. So guess what Junior did? He joined the country club, he bought a boat, and he went to Ireland. People, use your retirement for your retirement. I mean, leaving stuff to your kids is great, but leaving your kids money that's in your retirement plan is not the wisest thing to do. If you want to leave a legacy for your children, you can do it for pennies on the dollar with life insurance. Mm-hmm. That's how we leave legacies, is life insurance. That's the wise financial way to do that. Doing it through an IRA, 401k, 403b, any of those kind of things, it's just not the wise way. Plus, then they're going to have to pay all the taxes on those accounts once they take the withdrawals. But anyway, all that being said, to go back to the question, you need to separate the needs from the wants. So the needs are that base that you've got to have, the amount that you've got to have to cover what you've got to pay every single month. No matter what, you've got to pay for food, you've got to pay for lodging, you've got to pay the church, you've got to whatever. That's how much we've got to have. But then, we need to build in, and I always ask people, okay, there's your expenses, that's our baseline. How much extra would you like to get? Mm-hmm. And people usually look at me like, huh? Think about it. I know it's something people don't normally think about. But when you're getting into the distribution phase, we can plan for that. If you want to have an extra $1,000 a month after you retire over your expenses, we can plan for that. We look at the expense number. We look at what you're going to get for social. Is your spouse going to get social? How's that going to work? When are they going to turn on? There's a lot of moving pieces to these whole projects. But sitting down and figuring out what's your needs versus your wants, well, your wants might be an extra $1,000 a month so you can go see the grandkids. Mm-hmm. So you can join the country club with your friend Bill that's always been in the country club, and now you can go too. It's to take that trip with your wife around the world or whatever it is. It's having the money to do those things. That's super important. And then people say, well, yeah, but when I get older, I'm not going to need that because I'm not going to be traveling as much. Well, when you're not traveling as much, guess what other expense then goes up? Healthcare. Because if you're not traveling as much, chances are pretty doggone good there's a reason you're not traveling so much, and you're going to need health care of some kind, whether that's in-home care to help you or whatever that is. So making sure you've got all of that in place. Also, another thing that you've got to think about is you need to make sure you've got a plan for market volatility moving forward. So that's why I always talk about guarantees. I'm not talking about IFCOM. I'm talking about guaranteed income. So when we're talking about making sure you've got enough to cover your base expenses, that's going to be with Social Security, and that's going to be with a guaranteed lifetime income annuity that's going to pay you as long as you and your spouse are breathing, or however we set it up, based on that. But making a plan for what are you going to do if all your money is still in the market and the market goes down 30%, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. Well, we need to make a plan for that, because if that's where you're going to leave your money, there needs to be a plan for that, because sooner or later, we're in a huge bubble. What happens to every bubble? Y'all hear me say this every week, and I have been for the last 6 months. It's sooner or later, that bubble is going to burst. I can't tell you whether it's going to be this February or February of 27 or February of 37. I don't know. But at some point, it's going to go down. Look at the history of the market. That's what it does. It goes up, it goes down. That's what it does. It goes up slowly and goes down quickly. So make sure you've got a plan for that. And then the last thing that I always recommend to people is, I know it's hard, but somehow you've got to make sure that you reduce your spending decisions based on emotions. You don't want, because your grandkid calls and says, oh, I've got to have this PS5 that's $550. Doesn't mean you have to do it. So make sure that you're wise about what you are spending your money on in your retirement. Again, I really preach for people. They need to spend their money on themselves. Mm-hmm. This is the one time in life that you need to be very selfish, sure. And it's at your retirement. You worked your tail off for 40, 45, 50 years to get that retirement. You need to be able to enjoy it in retirement. Now, when you're gone, if there's any left for your kids, great. If you want to make a plan and make sure there's a certain amount left for your kids, then let's make that plan. We can do it for pennies on the dollar with life insurance. Don't leave them money in IRAs, 401s, TSPs. Leave them life insurance. But overall, as y'all hear me say every week, sit down with someone, make a concrete plan, and make sure that you're ready for the next step.
And that someone is Tim Wood. You hear him on the show each and every week. He's the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. And if you want to get on his calendar, folks, there's no cost, there's no obligation. Have these types of conversations with someone who does this day in and day out and helps put plans together for folks just like you. And here's what we're going to do, folks, for our first 5 callers from today's show. Tim and his team, they're going to throw in a complimentary copy of his book. It's also entitled Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. So if you want to speak with Tim, you want to get on his calendar, you want a complimentary copy of that book, 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233, or online anytime. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com.
It's now time for our Safe Money Story of the Week. Visit SafeMoneyStories.com to view more.
for this week's Safe Money Story of the Week, I kind of want to piggyback off of what we were just talking about and talk to you about a gentleman that came in. He's a single, older man. We will call him Bill. So Bill came into my office a few weeks ago, and what we were just talking about was something that he was really focused on. So he had a very high Social Security. I think he probably maxed out Social Security because he was making over $50,000 a year in Social Security, wow. And he had relatively small expenses. So he was already in a great position as far as his paycheck. Now, my buddy Tom Hegna uses the term Paychecks and Playchecks, okay? I use that a lot too. And him and I partner, and if anybody wants any of Tom Hegna's books, I have dozens of them here in the office. I can send you one of those too, just let me know. But he already had plenty of paychecks. He had enough paychecks to cover all of his bills and his giving that he was doing and his grandkids and all that stuff. He was good. What he wanted was playchecks. And he wanted to know those playchecks were going to come in the rest of his life because he wanted to be able to feel good about spending them. Because if you're just spending money in an account and you're just, okay, well, I'm going to do this and do this and do this, and you look at the account and it was at $500,000 and now all of a sudden it's at $350,000, you're going to go, oh, well, my goodness. Well, I'm going to do some math. Well, I went down $150,000 in my first 5 years of retirement. What's going to happen if and it's going to make you start freaking out. That's where he was. He wanted to make sure he had enough for the rest of his life for that paycheck, for the above his expenses part, to be able to do the trips and do everything he wanted to do. And guess what we did? Exactly what y'all have heard me talk about before. But instead of needing a gap plan just to cover his expenses, his plan was to go above and beyond his expenses. He wanted an extra $1,500 a month on top of what he had in order to make sure that he could do what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. So he had enough to cover his expenses plus $1,500 a month. I mean, think about that. That's a pretty comfortable retirement, people. I think most people would take that. If you could retire right now and know that everything was covered and you had $1,500 extra every single month, that's pretty sweet. Well, that's what we got him to. Now, he had a very large account that we pulled from, but what we did was we got him into a guaranteed lifetime income annuity that paid him $1,500 a month. So on top of everything else he already had, because he already had social, and he actually already had a small pension as well. So he had plenty of income to cover his base expenses. This was just for his paycheck. Now, again, the good thing about it was if he spends that paycheck this month on, say he goes on a long weekend to Myrtle Beach and blows that $1,500. Okay, another $1,500 is coming next month. Mm-hmm. It's going to make it a lot easier to spend that $1,500. And then guess what's coming the month after that? Another $1,500. It's not ever going to stop as long as he's breathing. It's coming. And with what we funded it with, if he were to pass before all of that's used, the remainder goes to a beneficiary. It's a fantastic plan. That's why I use them all the time. He left completely happy, knowing that he was completely set and that he would have enough for his paychecks for the rest of his life.
If you'd like to learn more about those Playchecks, I know we talk about replacing the paycheck, but if you're looking for more details about those Playchecks in retirement and you're looking to build that fun money bucket when it comes to your financial future, Tim Wood and his team at Safe Money Retirement, they're here to help, and they're just a phone call away. Mentioned it just a few moments ago, our first 5 callers to schedule that complimentary discovery call with Tim and his team. You're going to not only have a chance to pick his brain, to learn more about the process, he's also going to throw in a complimentary copy of his book as well. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. Now, all you need to do is be one of our first 5 callers right now, 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233. Or if you missed any of our recent Safe Money stories, catch up online anytime at safemoneystories.com. That's safemoneystories.com. All right, we'll give you a couple of minutes to make that call. Get on Tim's calendar, and we'll continue with much more of this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood right after this.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck. Do you still have all of your retirement money at risk in the market? Most know that I don't do that. It's way too dangerous, in my opinion, at least. The fact the market could fall off a cliff tomorrow, yet many don't have an expert you can trust. Let me tell you about Tim Wood. Now, he's the owner of Safe Money Retirement. That's a certified financial fiduciary and a best-selling author. I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that he and his team can help you plan your own guaranteed lifetime income streams to cover you and your spouse and grow your money while protecting it from a market crash. Go to safemoneyretirement.com/Beck or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation free 15-minute discovery call with Tim. You know I just don't trust anyone, and so do your own homework with Tim at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and book your free discovery call with Tim online or call 800-913-SAFE and get started today.
It is the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood. He is the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. My name's Kevin McAlpin. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And of course, Tim and I appreciate you making this show just a very small part of your routine each and every week. Well, Tim, I don't know if you're familiar with the name Ryan Beck, but he's a comedian and a filmmaker, and he certainly over the years has drawn a lot on experiences from his parents. By the way, his parents are now retired. Take a listen to this.
If you don't have retired parents, basically what that means is that now I call them up on the phone and they've been answering the phone as a team. I don't know why that started, but they're just like, the phone's ringing? Well, we better both hop on this. Who knows who's calling? Just hello, you're on speaker. Why? Why am I on speaker? Every time I call them, I'm on speaker. I'm like, Dad, why am I on speaker? He's like, anything you can say to me, you can say in front of your mother. Is she your attorney? Why is counsel present? What's happening?
Well, one thing we do know, Tim, as when it comes to a team, couples moving into retirement, they certainly want to do things, especially financially, as a team. So, Tim, what are some of the biggest money conversations that absolutely need to happen? Like we mentioned earlier, that, longevity is a thing and lifespan is certainly another part of this conversation. But what are some of those financial conversations that couples should really be having as a team before it gets too late?
Well, yeah, there are some. And I have seen some heated discussions in my office because if there's things that I bring up that couples haven't discussed before, and then all of a sudden I bring it up and she wants one thing and he wants something else, you better get ready. I mean, you might want to get your pads on because, it could be on. And one of those things is, are we on the same page as far as investment risk? Because in a lot of cases, now I don't want to stereotype because sometimes it's the other way around, but in most cases, the men are still fine doing more risk and the women want more security. Now, again, you could be listening and you could say, well, it's opposite with me. I do see that, yes. But I'd say 80 to 90% of the men are like, no, we've been fine. Things have been going great. Well, that could change tomorrow, son. What are you going to do? And the women are like, no, I want to make sure that we're okay. I don't care about more growth. So it's a total thing. Now, that being said, that takes me back to something y'all have heard me talk about now for several years, and that is the RISA, the Retirement Income Style Awareness Assessment. Folks, y'all can do that for free on my website right now. Go to safemoneyretirement.com, click on the RISA tab. This is one of the things that I have every couple do before our fact finder because it's going to bring these things up, Kevin. It's going to make people sit down and go, okay, well, Jim answered it this way, but Sarah answered it this way. Well, here, we need to discuss that. This is how Jim says, it said Jim's going to be happy in retirement, but here's how she's going to be happy in retirement. We need to try to, massage both and make sure everybody's going to be happy at the end. Another thing is, do y'all talk about money enough? Do y'all have discussions about money? And do y'all have discussions about what you want to do? And piggybacking on that, what you want your retirement to look like. That's super important. People don't sit down, and that's one of the things, again, that I have them do in the fact finder is, what do you see your life like in retirement? And at first people are like, oh, I'm going to play golf or I'm going to fish or whatever. Okay, great. And I'm a big golfer. I love golf. But let's just say I've been retired for 3 months and I've played golf every day. 3 months and one day I'm going to get up and be like, I guess I'll go play golf again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, just like no matter how much you love baseball, if you see baseball every single day, sooner or later, you're going to want a day without baseball.
No doubt.
So you need to figure out what's your retirement going to look like, because we need to plan for that. Also, is there a backup plan? And what is the backup plan if whoever's going to take care of your finances is gone? You need to make sure that there are durable powers of attorney in place. People, when my father was sick recently, I had to use that durable power of attorney. Now, I had on file. I've got a copy, my wife's got a copy, and my mom's got a copy. Everybody was filled in, and so was the hospital. Do you have one? If you do not, get one today. It's that important. You need to make sure what's going to happen if one of y'all gets dementia. Who's going to make medical decisions for you if you get in a bad wreck today? On the way home, God forbid, if you get in a bad wreck, who's going to make those medical decisions for you? And if it's your spouse, then that's great. Your spouse would automatically be able to, but what happens if the spouse is in the car with you? Then who's going to make the decisions? If you've got 5 kids and there's one you really trust and 4 you don't, you want to make sure the one you trust is the one making the decisions. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is a power of attorney. So make sure that you've got things set. And then lastly, I see this far too often, are good financial records being kept? I mean, just bottom line, you would not believe how many people come in here, have no idea what their budget is.
Yeah.
What's your expenses? No clue. How much are you making? 50, 60, 70, I'm not sure. How much does your wife make? How much is your social going to be? Really? I mean, I'm sorry, that's not good enough for me. And I'm going to be that guy that's going to say, no, I want numbers. Mm-hmm. I want to, what did you make last year? What did she make last year? What's your social going to be at 62, at 67, at 70? What are your expenses? What do you want your retirement to look like? Let's make a solid plan. And looking at all that stuff is super important for couples because things do change in retirement. And I completely relate to what Ryan was saying, that I've had those conversations that's on speakerphone for no reason. I've literally done that. So yeah, I know exactly where they're coming from, but having these hard conversations and having them in the fact finder, that first appointment. So by the time we're getting together in the second appointment and going over the plans, we've already massaged all that out. We already know, okay, we, y'all both like this, or she likes this, and you like this, or whatever. So we know that. So when we're getting together and going over the plans, we're not having to even discuss that because we know why we're looking at it. Mm-hmm. We know what it's for. We know what its purpose is, and we're moving forward based on those parameters. But yeah, getting both people in a couple on the same page is huge, huge.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about some of those money conversations you should be having as a team when it comes to both spouses being on the same page, and you want to sit down with someone who does this day in and day out, well, that's Tim Wood. He's the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary. And if you want to get on his calendar, all you need to do is pick up the phone, 800-913-SAFE. That number again, folks, 800-913-7233. Or you can always reach him online anytime. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I saw a recent study from Northwestern Mutual, and it says for those who have $1 million or more of investable assets, 84% have long-term financial plans that factor for up and down economic cycles. Go below $1 million, that number drops to 50% and continues down to the national average of about 37%. Now, while people might say they want to invest like a millionaire, apparently they don't plan like a millionaire. So, Tim, I know that the vast majority of those folks out there have not saved that magic $1 million number for retirement, but how can you help them even if they feel like maybe they're behind or maybe they're not where they need to be on their retirement journey?
What you just said is so true. When I see people that come in that have 7 figures and even more so multiple 7 figures that they've got planned for their retirement, they absolutely, almost all of them have a solid plan. Mm-hmm. Here's what I'm going to do for this. Here's what I'm going to do for that. And they're getting to me and we're tweaking. We're figuring out, do we need to tweak? Okay, well, you've been doing this and that could work, but this could happen. I mean, we're tweaking. But yeah, when you get to someone that's got less, do they want to be like a millionaire? They probably in their mind want to, but yeah, most of them don't. They don't sit down. They don't have a plan. What you need to do, like y'all hear me preach every single week, is you need to sit down with someone. Here's the 2 big things you got to look for. Number 1, they need to be a certified financial fiduciary so you know that they have got your best interest at heart. That's number 1. Number 2, in my opinion, That person needs to be totally independent so they can show you all of your options off of the entire free market that's in your state. So whatever state you're in, someone can look at the entire market to see what all's available from all of the top rated companies and come back to you with whatever the best is. Those, in my opinion, are the two most important pieces that someone needs to have. Again, someone that's got under $1 million, everybody doesn't need $1 million. Mm-hmm. I have people that come to me all the time that have 1, 2, 3, 400,000 saved, and they're like, oh, I don't have enough. I had a lady just this morning that her total savings with everything was around 250, and she just was sure, I'm done. I'm when I retire. But we looked at what her social was, we looked at what her expenses are, and we're going to be able to peel just actually a relatively small piece off of that 250 to cover the gap, and now she's going to have enough income to cover her expenses in retirement. Man, you should have just seen you could literally physically see her shoulders drop when I said that. She said, so you're telling me I'm going to be able to retire and cover all my bills? Yeah, you are. And you're still going to have almost $150,000 that we can do something else with. We can have some inflation buster plans. We can just grow it and you can withdraw from it when you want to. You can leave it as a legacy, whatever you want to do, but we can get this covered. So yeah. So anyway, to get back to what you were saying, the people that don't have $1 million in their mind, I think that they want to plan like a millionaire. How can they? They need to sit down with someone, go over their entire plan holistically and figure out what they need. Do you need income? Do you need growth? Do you need long-term care? Do you need life benefits? There's a whole bunch of things I could keep going. Figure out what you need. Figure out where your stumbling blocks are. Mm-hmm. Where are the challenges coming? Because they're coming. You can see the storm clouds. Well, if you see a storm cloud, you better either get inside or get an umbrella. So be prepared. Let's sit down and let's make sure that you're prepared so that way you can, no matter what happens, and that's what millionaires do. That's what they do. Right. They sit down with someone like me all the time and we make a plan. That's what you need to do no matter how much you've got. And if you don't have enough yet, let's make a plan for how we're going to get you to where you need to be when you're retired. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if you're retired and you still don't have enough, well, you might need to work part-time. Let's discuss that. It's called a part-time retirement. I've got a lot of clients that do that. So let's just sit down and make an overall plan that's going to make the most sense for you.
It all starts with one call to Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement. And if you'd like to start building that plan today, give him a call. 800-913-SAFE. Again, it's 800-913-7233. Or online, the website is safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, we are once again very quickly running out of time on this week's show. But before we do, my friend, the floor is all yours once again for the final word.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Another great show. Thank you. And thank everybody for listening. Hope everyone has a good week. We did discuss some important things. What can you do even if you don't have $1 million to plan like a millionaire? And it's sitting down with someone that can show you all of your options, that looks at everything, that looks holistically at your plan, and that's a certified financial fiduciary, so they have your best interest at heart. Those are the things you need to make sure you look for. We discussed, what do couples need to do? What do they need to talk about? What do they need to focus on? Making sure that you have got your financial stewardship set up in case of an accident, in case of dementia, in case of whatever. Super important. Talking about, do you have your records being kept properly? Are y'all both on the same page as far as how you want to do your investments and how you want to do your income in retirement and all that stuff? Super huge. But I want to go back to the very first thing that we discussed, and that is the paychecks versus the playchecks. People always think in retirement, oh man, all I need to make sure I've got enough to cover my expenses. And you absolutely do. You're 100% right. You do. That is step number one, and that's exactly what you will do with anyone that knows what they're doing. That's going to be step one that they do with you to make sure you've got enough income. But it goes beyond that. What's beyond the minimum? We don't want a minimum type of retirement. There's studies on this, and there's people that underfund their retirement and wind up leaving more that they shouldn't and not doing things in their life that they should have gotten to because they were worried about it. We'll sit down and make a plan, and you don't have to worry about it. Let's make sure you've got that playcheck so you can have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.